the Ron and Brian Podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's Sunday night. It is 8 o'clock, and it is time for episode 256 of the Ron and Brian podcast. Brian, how the hell are you, my friend?
I am doing well this Sunday evening. It is, the weekend, it's a special time. It's the opportunity for all of us to kind of unplug from the anxiety of work and plug into the anxiety of our personal lives.
Nice.
And that's why we do this show.
Listen, and it's that time of year. It's staying lighter out longer.
Sure.
Still a beautiful night out there tonight in the Northeast. And we are ready to get this episode 256, rolling. Brian, as always, it's time for Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Drink of the Week.
Sláinte. Pause.
Drink of the Week. Drink of the Week.
All right, Brian, what are you drinking tonight?
All righty. I'm keeping the theme going of crushable beers. I'm going to complain about the weather in a bit, but before I do that, I'm just going to say I'm drinking a crushable summer lager coming from our good friends in Belgium, Bira 91. That is not the name of the beer. That is the name of the brewery. And this is their blonde lager. I'm going to pick it up right now if you give me a moment. But I'm going to tell you, look at this beautiful color. This...
Ooh. That looks incredibly drinkable and crushable. Looks
so
very refreshing.
Drinkable, so crushable. All right, listen. This is Bira 91's take on the classic lager. It's blonde, it's crisp, and it's refreshing. The perfect thirst quencher. This beer is meant to put you in a summer state of mind.
Almost time for hot podcast for summer. Almost.
Our brain, almost, not quite. No matter what season you're drinking it in. It's a no-nonsense beer style. The beer is made with noble hops from Germany, giving it a refreshing piney aroma and a medium bitter finish. I don't like the smell. The beer pours a clean, clear, golden sparkle in the glass. It's dry on the palate, making it super easy to drink, especially when you want to go back to a simpler time.
All right, give it a sip. Let us know how it is.
Oh, that is good.
Oh, all right, good.
It doesn't smell good.
Right.
You ever have like milk that's been in the refrigerator for about 2.5 weeks and then suddenly like you forgot and you take it out and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if this milk went bad. And then you take a sip and you're like, oh yeah, this milk did go bad. It's got that kind of hint to it. Tastes perfectly fine. If I'm dead tomorrow morning, I think we can all, we have video evidence.
I'll pull this up.
It's my beer. But yeah, it's a good lager.
All right, taking another sip of it. It can't be bad.
Yeah, it tastes fine.
Right.
Ron.
Yes.
Ron.
Yes, my friend.
Ron.
Yes.
What are you drinking?
So this week, went to the Tavor box once again. This is from the good folks at Wiley Roots Brewing Company out of Colorado. This is their Country Fair Cobbler, peaches and cream, Brian. It is fruited sour with pureed peach, graham crackers, cinnamon, vanilla, and milk sugar, or as you like to refer to it, lactose. This is clocking in at a solid 6.8%. Has a nice peach-colored hue to it.
How does it smell?
Has a peachy smell to it. Let's take a sip. Oh, damn! That is peach cobbler. Like that.
Really?
Wow.
Because a lot of times we get these beers where it they say that it's flavored and they list all the hints and accents and whatnot, and you taste it, you're like, this just tastes like a beer. This is a bitter beer, but you seem on board with this.
This is my only complaint with this is I feel like I'm drinking a peach cider more than I'm drinking a beer. That's how much peach flavor there is. It's so peach forward.
Really? If you can,
it's good though. Like I don't know that I could have more than one because it is very sweet and very peachy.
Right.
But that is a good beer. That is very
Interesting.
tasty.
All right. You
God
know what?
bless.
It's always nice. It is peachful. It's always nice when you have a beer that you're enjoying.
Yes.
Because, you open it up and, sometimes, for instance, you crack open your beer, you get a good, you put your nose right into it and take a nice whiff and it smells like sour milk. And you're like, oh.
But this
And then
is good scented. This is good flavored. I'm enjoying myself.
Very, very nice. Ron, how are you doing? How are you doing this week?
You know what? Let's get some stuff off our chest, Brian. Let's do it with Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
All right, Brian, what's bothering you this week?
What's bothering me is the weather.
Mm.
I don't know where how much different it is in Philly. Suburban Philadelphia.
Right.
However, it has been absolutely miserable here in New York for the past week. This is May already, people, and you've got people walking the streets in their winter coats. The temperature has been in the 40s regularly, going up to mid 50s if we're lucky. It's cold. It's been rainy. And it's been one of the worst allergy seasons that we have had in as long as I can remember. The number of people in my office that are taking boxes of tissues from the filing cabinet outside my office, which is where we hide office supplies.
Of course, makes sense.
That's exactly where, they want when people to, when they're going to grab office supplies, what really you want is to have the HR guy harass you and ask you what it is you're getting. What do you need?
Is your nose really that runny that you need another box of tissues?
Sure. But a lot of times people are in the middle of a call and I just start talking to them and then keep talking to them even when they're like, no. But the worst part, cocaine. Yes, people are doing cocaine. No, I don't think people are doing coke in my office.
You never know.
Maybe years ago, but it's too expensive nowadays.
True. Inflation.
But yeah, the weather has just been miserable. And, I was talking to somebody earlier today who's just said, I feel like I'm kind of in a funk. And, we started, kind of trying to figure out in their, what was going on in their life that could be, causing it. And then we landed on the weather. And my friend was just like, yes, I don't even remember the last time I was out in the sun.
People get that seasonal affective disorder. So if you have bad weather for a while, it definitely can impact your mood.
I don't mind a rain here or there, but like for it to be cold and rainy for a whole week, I may as well move to London. I mean, with this shitty weather.
I mean, I was out in State College last week, woke up on Wednesday morning, was it? And it was 34 degrees. And there was a chance of snow. And it was, May 3rd? Absolutely
That's
insane.
Insanity to me.
And even here at home, we had a lot of rain, a lot of cold weather. It still only got up into the 50s. So I understand what you're talking about, my friend.
You know what I miss?
What do you miss?
I miss the days when you were doing the show in the basement because you had gotten kicked out and every time it rained, you would hear alarms going off throughout your house.
That's true. There was a lot of water coming in the house. We took care of that though. We've taken care of the water.
There was taking care of it.
Yeah.
While we're talking about it, like what are your upcoming house projects? Because that's what people really want to know.
Well,
they want to know what is Ron and Mrs. Ron up to this summer in terms of working around the house, because you have made such progress over the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic. A lot of people, learned how to make bread. They kept their sourdough starter tended. A lot of people learned a foreign language, and I know that you and Mrs. Ron really focused on your home. You were nesting.
Well, it's ironic because my beef of the week, thank you for asking, is actually tied to upcoming home improvement project.
Really?
Because we need to borrow a little money take a little of the equity out of the home to put money back into the home. And
Mhm.
so, you want to shop around. Interest rates are crazy right now. So you want to shop around. And if you're like me, I don't want to have to call people. I don't want to have to speak to people. I just want to be able to go online and find out where the best rate is. And so you have these websites that you can go to, and they say, hey, just plug in what you need, and the information you need will pop up right on the screen, interest rates and all that. Well, this one site, and I forget the name of it, that did not happen. But all of a sudden, I literally within 30 seconds started getting multiple phone calls from multiple companies on my phone.
Yep.
The worst one being Rocket Mortgage. I must have
Mhm.
gotten 20 phone calls in 3 days from Rocket Mortgage, none of which
Feel
I
that.
answered, because I'm like,
Sure.
because I even put in there like, yeah, if you want to communicate via email, let me know. But otherwise, I don't want to talk on the phone. I don't want to deal with people. You can either
Sure.
help me or you can't. I don't want to be sold. I don't want to be pitched. I know how much money I need to borrow. I know an interest rate I'm willing to pay. Just give me that information.
Have you considered a 401k loan or a IRA loan?
Sure. They always recommend against tying anything to your retirement. And I think, I heard of someone who cashed in part of their 401k to get into the stock market. Very, very poor investment.
That's a terrible idea, because then you're paying the 20% tax and a 10% penalty.
Right.
However, the people that tell you not to take money out of your 401k or a loan per se, those are the people that are making money when there is money in the stock market. The second
Fair.
you take a loan from your 401k, the value of your 401k dips, which means that your asset manager is getting a lower fee based on that. So you're actually costing them money when you take a 401k loan. The other thing I would wanted to advise you, I'm surprised your Mrs. Ron hasn't mentioned this to you. As you know, she is all about 401ks.
She is.
Is that the difference was, and I mentioned this specifically because of the higher interest rates, is that the interest you're paying on your 401k loan, and this is really the type of entertainment that people really come to when they see the Ron and Brian show. They're literally sitting there being like, "Hey, how do I learn about 401ks?" But the interesting thing about 401k loans is the interest you're paying on that loan is going right back into your 401k. So instead of paying a mortgage company 6, 7, 8%, you're paying the same interest, but it's going back into you're actually borrowing money from yourself. You're paying it back with interest, but that interest is also going to you. So to me, and it's just how much I hate the banks and the financial institutions, that to me, what you're missing out on in terms of the perspective for the stock market increase, you're paying yourself instead of paying a banker, which I am all about 100%. Listen, you son of a bitch. You know how many hours? Do you know how many hours over the past 5 years I've had to sit here and listen to you bitch and complain because you didn't get the spices that you
This time's gotta stop.
Were you waiting for that? Because I feel like you were waiting for that.
No, I really wasn't. I was sitting there saying that like a 401k loan is makes so much more sense than taking a mortgage than borrowing from a bank. It's, especially when the interest rates are, more than like a 2% or whatnot, you're paying yourself that money.
Okay.
And I don't know how much you're looking to take out, but
listen, I offered for you to make an investment in us at a very reasonable rate of return, and you said no. So I had to look elsewhere. But so we have to get a new roof on the house. It's that time finally. And we're going to do a little work in the backyard because I need.
Hold on. Is that because the roof is on fire?
It is not.
You don't need no water.
Unfortunately, we are getting water in the house, which is the problem.
What's happening? Oh, water's coming in?
Yeah. The roof is old. It's an old house. Time to go.
Right.
Time to go. And priced out the Tesla solar roof. Was a little bit on the expensive side.
Why would you give Elon Musk any money at this point? After what he has done to Twitter, I would be hard pressed to look respectively at anybody that has put money into Elon Musk's pocket. Right.
Listen, I was attempting to eliminate our monthly electric bill, but I would not.
Isn't there other solar companies that you could use? I mean, I'm constantly seeing ads on Instagram how New York State is doing a refund rebate to homeowners who are doing solar.
Well,
I'm sure that's not a scam.
The difference is, no, New York is actually providing grants for people, and you do get a 30% tax credit from the federal government. The difference is I'm not a fan of solar panels on the roof. So what Tesla does is make actual metal roof tiles, so you look like you just have a metal roof, but it's actually also a solar roof.
What's the difference between the metal tiles versus a solar panel?
So, I mean, a solar panel is big and bulky. The tile looks like an actual just roofing tile.
Oh, so the roof actually looks like a regular roof.
Correct.
And they're the only ones that are doing this?
At this point, yes.
It kind of sucks.
So would you like to guess how much it would have been to do my roof with the Tesla tiles?
Yeah. I'm going to say it would cost you $40,000.
Not quite, my friend. Try $135,000 for it to operate at 41% efficiency because of the trees we have around us.
Well, you would chop down the trees, no offense, right?
They are not on our property.
But you could, a question, if a tree is going over your property line, are you allowed to cut the branch that is on your property?
Possibly, but we try to be good neighbors around here, Brian.
Because hate has no home here.
Oh, I think after doing the neighborhood Facebook post last week, I think we realized that hate most definitely. And I was very disappointed. Quick side story is in our another neighborhood Facebook group, someone posted on who they could call, what they wanted an extermination company they could call to get a fox out of their yard so their cat could go outside. This went insane because because there's foxes don't really hunt cats to begin with, and again it becomes the whole, well, you can keep your cat inside, why do you want to kill a fox who probably has babies somewhere nearby? And and unfortunately I was driving and I saw it and I'm like, this is going to be another fucking golden one. And by the time I got home, the poster did a dirty delete. She took it down because she was just getting eviscerated by everybody.
Now, have you ever thought about going onto your Facebook group and putting a post just to
start drama,
some fire? Yeah, I mean,
we'll see. We'll have to spitball some ideas back and forth.
Do you remember when your wife put out for Christmas, your wife's what an amazing gesture, all joking aside, your wife spent like Christmas week putting out a stand in front of the house and putting out different treats for different people throughout the week. And I was such an asshole about it. I remember every day.
Yeah, you were.
Like the first day I didn't say anything, and the second day, it was peak pandemic. We're talking like December of 2020. And I remember I just started complaining about everything that she put out there.
Yes. You posted you put out like hot cocoa, and you'd be like, I'm sorry, I don't see any whipped cream to put on top of that hot cocoa there.
And then the other people in your group would literally like rip me to shreds. And then she started doing a coat drive, which really, the world needs people like this. The world needs people who actually are good natured and out there. And I said that, I posted that complaining that I walked by to see the coats, but my nephew didn't like any of them. They weren't in his size. And it was just like the outrage of your neighbors who were like, that is not the purpose of this. And how can you come to, it was just beautiful.
And then every now and then you got kicked out of that neighborhood group.
Well, of course, I'm sure your wife complained about me. And then I remember one day I just left a couple things in front of my apartment door. Like it was literally like a tiny little piece of chocolate. And I posted in my group that I was leaving stuff out for people. And I think she didn't talk to me for about 2 weeks.
That was one of the more big ways you upset her.
Yeah. I remember one.
We finally threw away that stand. We had it we threw it in our garage after the other Christmas. And I forgot to tell you, I had a very good experience. We talked beef of the week. I had a very good experience with a company called We Love Junk. they come by and they take like literal junk that the garbage men don't take. So they took that. They took a bunch of stuff. But they said, Brian, I told them about the podcast, and they said, you know what? We want to give you a promo code. So if you're in the Philadelphia area and you use We Love Junk, just use the promo code Ron's Junk, and you will get 2.5% off of a full truckload removal. Promo code Ron's Junk.
Ron's Junk. RONSJUNK. And what's the name of it? What was that website again?
We love
junk.com.
We love junkphilly.com.
We love junkphilly.com. Now, did anything ever transpire of that coffee company that we were close to getting a promo code for?
I haven't heard anything back yet. So they had an issue with trying to. I asked for the promo code Ron's Balls, and they apparently felt that didn't match their product for some reason.
Did you tell them that you have play with basketballs and volleyball, and you have a YouTube channel?
I mean, it's a sports themed coffee drink, because they say you can drink it pre-workout because of the amino acids and everything else. Mm-hmm. So I thought it tied in, but we're still trying to get
That's
that
disappointing.
Get that signed up.
That is very disappointing.
Anyway, Brian, it's our stories of the week before we go off on yet another tangent. It's stories of the week, stories that we want to make sure don't fall through the cracks. Brian, what's your story of the week this week?
All righty. My story, I feel like there might be some blowback on this one.
Might just a little bit.
What do you mean? You think it's problematic?
I think you just tell it's your story. I'm not going to say anything. You go right through with it.
Okay, my story is in New York. A story that has really taken over local news is that earlier this week on a subway train on Monday afternoon, so probably about 6 days ago, there was a mentally ill man who was shouting aggressively in a subway car. He was screaming that he had no food, he had no drink, that he was tired. That he said he didn't care if he went to jail. He was walking around with, I believe he had something in his hand that some people took as a weapon of some type. Took off his jacket. He started throwing it onto the ground. But people who were on the subway car were reported that they were very ill at ease with what was going on. And there was a passenger on that subway car who was happened to have been a former Marine who had some martial arts training, who walked up behind this homeless man and put him in a chokehold. I don't really know the. Oh yeah, there you go. The terms of that. Well, it looks like he's got him pretty good. Well, apparently he had him really well, because the homeless man literally passes out from the chokehold, and 911 is called, or the cops come. Paramedics show up because the homeless man does not get up. They tried to revive him, and he was reported dead. At first, the news kind of started it as, the dangers of the subway. However, there has become, now we are talking days of protest here in New York. Not by, thousands. This isn't a Black Lives Matter protest. These aren't George Floyd numbers. But there have been dozens of people protesting at police headquarters that the man seen here in the olive drab jacket applying the chokehold, that this man has not been charged with any crime. There are cries for manslaughter, cries for murder. It is not every day that somebody gets choked to death on a New York City subway, but it has dominated New York local news over the past couple weeks. And I know that nobody said, "Hey, Brian, what's your opinion on this?" But I'm going to give it, and I'm going to say kudos. This absolutely kudos to this. We are there's too much of a lawless sense from those who are mentally ill, from those who don't understand what behavior you need to exert. That it is not okay to threaten people. It is not okay to act in a threatening manner to total strangers. Nobody should be choked to death I do believe that, this man probably did not intentionally choke him with the intent, hey, I'm going to kill this person. But once again, the narrative, and I was talking about it last week in the episode, is if you are in a dangerous situation, I do not believe in the sense in New York City that there is a police officer that is close enough by to protect you. There's been too many people in New York City who have been attacked in the subway system. There's too many people who've been thrown onto subway tracks in front of buses, et cetera, that here somebody stepped in and put a stop to it. And I do, it's unfortunate that he died, but I do believe that, that there's too many unreported crimes of mentally ill people in the subways attacking people. So it's a shame, but I absolutely do not believe that this person. I noticed the way this rant you didn't cut off. You let me keep going on this one, just digging myself up. But like
I disagree with you, obviously. But
why obviously?
Because the same reason I disagreed with you last week when we did fuck around and find out, and you had a number of people who were killed, while committing crimes against other people.
Sure.
Again, I think the sad part of this story, is you have this guy, Jordan Neely, the person who was killed. His mother apparently was brutally murdered back in 2007. He developed schizophrenia, PTSD, depression. He becomes homeless. He's having a mental episode on the train. Is he loud? Is he menacing? Yes. Does he attack anyone? No. And does he get choked out for 15 minutes because of it? He does. But
he was menacing people.
That's why I said he was menacing people.
Yeah.
But he wasn't physically assaulting people to the point where, again,
we wait for somebody to be physically attacked?
I'm just saying, if you're going to use that level of force that somebody dies, what is the difference between that and, should Eric Garner have been choked to death by police officers because he was selling bootleg CDs?
First off, if you're going to talk about Eric Garner,
he was committing a crime.
If you're going to talk about Eric Garner, at least use correctly what he was accused of. He was selling loose cigarettes at the time.
Was he cigarettes?
He was
or CDs?
He had already been arrested for selling CDs, but at the time that they were coming after him, he was selling loosies, as we like to call them here in New York. Second of all, is as somebody who has been on a subway car while there has been a homeless, mentally erratic person screaming and shouting different things, I'm going to say kudos to the fact that somebody actually did get involved and make that subway car a safer place. Because the mentality of, no, let's wait till somebody gets injured before we step in and do something is not for the betterment of society. There are too many, and don't get me wrong, I'm going to go back to it. There is a mental health a crisis in this country. And if Billy were around right now, he would blame it on Ronald Reagan and be 100%
he wouldn't be
correct.
Wrong. He would not be wrong.
But ever since the pandemic, when they shut down all of the homeless shelters, there are way too many, and I would say way too many, but the city has been almost overrun with mentally ill people who are walking the streets, who do not understand where they are, what they're doing, and are acting in threatening ways. And I do believe that, for this city to get back to a place where you can walk the street and feel comfortable, there has to be some steps that are taken to stop this this level of harassment.
Well, and I'm not going to argue that there are steps that need to be taken, but I guess my argument is one of those steps that a member of the public gets to kill somebody.
That's because there's no police anymore. There are no police on the subways to step in. There was a sense you saw them every now and then. I can't remember the last time I saw a police officer on the subway. With the amount of crime in the subway systems, you would imagine there would be more. But the reality of the situation is, if somebody is walking back and forth in a subway car, shouting out threats that they're going to hurt somebody, I think it's a reasonable response by a rational person to take those threats seriously. And as a society to sit there and say, oh, wait a second, let's wait for the physical attack to happen and then let's step in. That's not a society I want to live in.
All right.
You know, if I see somebody stockpiling guns, I want to go there and say, hey, I want to send the ATF. I don't want to wait for that person to go on a shooting spree to then to come back and be like, ooh, okay, well now let's step in and try to take their guns.
So if somebody is stockpiling guns, it's okay to kill that person.
When it comes to guns, yeah, absolutely. And I know that I'm not. I believe that gun nuts should be shot.
All right. The city medical examiner has ruled Jordan Neely's death a homicide, and now the DA's office is considering whether to charge the 24-year-old Marine, who I don't believe has been identified by name yet, if they're going to charge. A lot of people feel that he's probably facing down an involuntary manslaughter charge at a minimum.
The New York Post said this afternoon that he has already lawyered up and hired a rival of DA Alvin Bragg. And I would like to be the first to name. I recognize. I don't know if you realize this, but I do recognize the man in the gray jacket. His name is Matthew Beaker, producer of the Ron and Brian podcast. He's been behind the scenes for years. He never wanted to come on, but I think now we can actually talk to him. He doesn't want to come on the show and talk about it. He said his lawyers have told him not to talk, but it would be great if he was willing to come on.
So can I get to my story, Brian, which I feel is kind of a softball after you went very, very dark on us there with your story.
Ron, what's your story of the week? So
my story of the week is about a woman who apparently had a, quote, loud and full body orgasm during an LA Philharmonic concert. This was about a week ago. The LA Philharmonic was performing Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony.
Wait a second, the fifth. Okay,
the fifth.
That makes it totally different.
So apparently a lot of concert goers described the woman getting very loud. A woman named Molly Grant, who was sitting nearby, said, quote, everyone kind of turned to see what was happening. I saw the girl after it had happened, and I assume that she had an orgasm because she was heavily breathing and her partner was smiling and looking at her like in an effort not to shame her. Grant also added, it was quite beautiful.
The orgasm was beautiful, or Tchaikovsky was quite beautiful.
I think a little of both. And coincidentally, British composer Magnus Fiennes, brother of actor Ralph Fiennes, was in attendance. Rafe.
Nobody calls him Ralph.
It's Rafe Fiennes. Excuse me, Rafe.
Rafe
Fiennes is a completely different person, I believe. See, this is why we need Billy. I don't know why Billy's not here, but all right, whatever.
He didn't even like, if he wants to be the executive producer of this show, you got to join. You got to be a member. You got to be around.
What other stories do we have this week, Brian?
Ron, where do we even start with the stories for this week?
Well, talk to me. You were talking to me a little bit about something called Bluesky, and I have no idea what that is. So if you can maybe educate me a little bit.
I will tie this to your outrage over the Tesla tiles. Okay.
Right.
Listen, people, I think it is just an open, it's not even an open secret anymore. However, we all at one point were fans of Twitter. We all enjoyed the idea of having 140 characters to express ourselves, maybe attach a photo, reply to somebody else with an emoji, if you would. However, Elon Musk made he felt that he was the right person to handle Twitter, offered a ludicrous amount of money, billions of dollars, if I'm not correct, or hundreds of millions.
Something like that. And then immediately began the process of running Twitter into the ground, in the sense of allowing just hate speech to run rampant. The number of anti-Semitic and racist posts that are now all over Twitter, it has become a very unpleasant place to look. He's trying to charge people to be verified.
I think I saw a recent valuation for Twitter where it's worth about 10% of what it was prior to Elon Musk buying it. But I think, myself as well as a lot of other people are sitting there saying, listen, these websites are a dime a dozen. All we need is somebody else to come up with something very similar. And obviously none of us are going over to Truth Media or whatever that website
Truth
is.
Social, I believe it is.
Truth Social. I'm not re-truthing somebody. I absolutely will not do that. However, Bluesky is the website of our futures. Bluesky is a website that is right now we're operating on a beta test system right now. It was created by Jack Dorsey. You may be asking yourself, who is Jack Dorsey?
Wasn't he the guy that co-founded Twitter?
Yes, he was. So he has, after getting out of the CEO position of Twitter, making his money off of Elon Musk, he has now gone out and been part of the team that are rolling out Bluesky. Apparently, that is going to be the next Twitter. Ron, if it makes you feel better, we have already put ourselves on the wait list for the account. I have put myself personally. I recommend other people do. And as soon as that is up and running, I say, let's all get off Twitter.
All right. Sounds good. I'm up for it.
So I believe the website is bluesky.ai. I could be wrong. It might be
it is bsky.app. App.
There you go. That's the website.
App.
I highly, I've never been on it. I don't even know what the layout is or whatnot. But as soon as that is up and running, I will be all about that. And I will be deleting my Twitter account. I just, Elon Musk has just become, you could see he really is a glorified child. I think he has got a very fascinating brain. The work he has done with SpaceX.
Yep.
And the work he did with Tesla, obviously both heavily subsidized by the federal government. But you know what? I'm not bitter at all. But I will say that what he's done with Twitter has just it's beneath me giving them my customer data. So as soon as I get on Bluesky, I will be deleting my Twitter account.
Fair enough.
Because when I need to make a rectum joke, I will be doing it on Bluesky.
Good plan. We have a sad story coming out of Washington State, Brian, where a high school student has died after he was fatally impaled through his eye last week in gym class. The young man, his name is Braden Bami, age 16, died at the hospital back on April 27th. Brian, would you like to, this was an interesting, we've heard of impalements in gym class before. Would you like to guess what he impaled himself on?
I'm going to say Jerry Sandusky.
You're incorrect in that. He fell, and I don't get this, he fell onto a goalpost while running during his PE class. So I guess it was like a small goalpost on the ground.
No, not necessarily, because when I was in high school, we had a gym where it was the gym floor, and then there was a second floor which had a running track around it. So you were above the gym floor. I mean, the fact is, I don't even know if they could do that now because so many students would jump over and die. It's possible. I mean, he had to be on an elevated surface.
You would think. It doesn't really go into a lot of detail. Bami, affectionately known as Fish Pockets in honor of his favorite pastime, was a sophomore at Cheney High School. They honored him with a candlelight vigil on the high school's field last Monday night. Yes. Why are you calling timeout, Brian?
How does one get a nickname Fish Pockets? Because
apparently, he was an avid fisherman. So, he would literally go out. He would literally catch fish, and he'd catch so many fish so that he'd shove them in his pockets to carry them.
Now, is it true that somebody spotted a flounder flopping around the running track to trip him,
I don't
so that he
believe
landed
so, no.
on the goalpost.
I don't believe so. His loved ones started a GoFundMe for funeral expenses, which has already raised over double its original $10,000 goal, with remaining funds being used to start a youth fishing program in Bami's name.
I'm sorry. Let's see. We've talked about this so much, but why is it that, it's a statement of the American society that when something bad happens to somebody, we absolutely love the fuck out of donating money to their GoFundMe's. Whereas
I
when
think
people
it's,
are
I don't.
alive, when people are alive and doing fine, we're just like, oh, they can go fuck themselves. Fuck them. But when somebody is, when a kid dies or a poor kid dies, whatever, it's suddenly, they their GoFundMe raised $150,000. Well, good. They're fucking dead. They're not able to. They're not going to ever appreciate this kind of money. Money's going to go to their parents. It's so far. I don't understand if something bad happens to your family, just create a GoFundMe and people will send you money.
Well, I can imagine the family probably wasn't prepared to have to pay for funeral expenses for a 16-year-old.
Well, should you start a GoFundMe for your Tesla tiles?
I think.
Why did my voice just go up? But
I don't know.
Why? I think you can get a Tesla tile GoFundMe. No.
Well, I'll see. Maybe we'll get that going. Brian, more importantly, what are you watching?
You know what? I will say this. I've been steadily watching a couple shows, which we've already talked about. I have been Succession, season 4, the final season. If you're not on the Succession train, you and I have nothing to talk about. That is a major exaggeration. I have a lot to talk about with a lot of people.
Very true.
But to me, Succession is such a to me, it's just the writing on it is just so elite compared to other shows. Recently, I was forced to watch a TV show about an American male who marries a woman from Africa, and they live in this small town where a lot of other Africans move to. The writing on it is such pandering to I don't even want to say to the lowest common denominator. I don't even know the name of the show, but it's a real show. It's Bob, and you're only allowed to talk during After Dark. It's called Bob Hart's Abishola. It's it's a real show.
Oh, I'm familiar with it. I've seen previews for it.
It's got Billy Gardell, who apparently has aged about 40 years and lost 300 pounds.
He doesn't look
from
good.
When he was on. Oh, he looks terrible.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize him for the longest until I saw a post on Instagram about him. I never would have made the connection that it was the same actor. This looks like Billy Gardell's father. But that's a terrible show. The writing on Succession is so fucking smart. There's so much subtlety. I'm not trying to hype myself up. I have a simple brain, and I am dumb like everybody. I find myself stopping, rewinding so I could rewatch a scene because I know that I missed some subtleties. I know I missed what was really going on in that scene. I'll rewatch that stuff. But Succession, so good. Also watching Ted Lasso, praying for the season to be over. Every new episode, I sit there and say to myself, hey, can this be the last one? I think it's the 4th season. I've invested already enough time. They're really pissing me off this season because all the previous seasons of Ted Lasso have been 30 minutes long each episode. This one, now they're an hour long. So
it's too much.
Nobody wants to watch an hour. And the thing is, it's such a cheesy show at this point that it's not even entertaining. But because I'm so fucking loyal, I need to know how the story ends. I've already committed so much of my life into this show that I need to just kind of figure out what happens. Also, I watched a couple of comedy specials, which I would like to talk about.
Please.
I don't think I mentioned last week, Baby J, the new stand-up special from John Mulaney.
Okay.
I'm going to start off by saying that John Mulaney used to be one of my favorite stand-up comedians, and he fell off the wagon since his last special, had a raging cocaine addiction, and needed to go to rehab for a long period of time. He divorced his wife.
I think he and Matt Beaker hung out and did coke for a while there.
Oh, I think Matt Beaker got John Mulaney back on coke. I think they were at the famous Variety Gordon Puck's Wolfgang Puck's after post Variety party.
Is that a combination of Gordon Ramsay and Wolfgang Puck? You just say Gordon Puck?
Yeah, it's just Wolfgang Puck walking around being like, "It's fucking raw, it's fucking raw." But I walked in, my impression of John Mulaney going into the special is so different because he really made his career on being this clean cut. I was a wild kid, but it's not me anymore. I'm now this kind of like dorky guy, and then suddenly he dumps his wife and has a baby with Olivia Munn, who, if anybody remembers her from 20 years ago, she was I think she.
Ago.
You don't think it was 20 years ago?
Olivia Munn? Like 10 years ago, maybe.
Get out of here. Olivia Munn was 20 years ago. Beaker, can you look it up? But we were, yeah, I mean, anyway, my point being is that when I heard all of this going on in his life, sat there and was like, you know what? That really changes my impression of who he is. I don't really see him the same way. Sat there, watched Baby J. He starts off the show, doing some bits, doing some jokes before going into it's an hour and 20 long. He does a solid hour of that on his drug addiction as well as what his rehab life was like. And after 20 minutes of it, I was just kind of not really into it. But as soon as he started really getting personal with what his how bad his drug addiction had gotten and how his behavior had deteriorated along with what his rehab, path was. I'm going to say this, one of the best specials I've seen in a while. Really, it was funny. And yet at the same time, without preaching, it was such a don't do drugs, people, because, you think you're having fun, but at the end of it, you are so not. And I also watched Lewis Black's new special, Tragically I Need You. I'm going to say this. It felt more like a TED Talk than a comedy special. There were laughs, but for the most part, it really was Lewis Black talking about his pandemic experience.
Got it.
And what it was like as he realized there was going to be a serious life change as the coronavirus started entering America, along with what his experience was after he had after the shutdown and he was living alone in New York and whatnot. Not funny at all. Entertaining, right. Yes. I also will admit I was doing a lot of computer work while I was on, so it was on in the background. So I would kind of dip in and out. I don't know that it's turn all the lights off and give it 100% of your attention. But it was glad I don't know that I would recommend it for you. Ron, what are you watching?
Well, first off, if I can just clarify, Olivia Munn first got famous with her role on The Newsroom back in 2012. So it is really just like about 10 years ago, not 20.
No shit. See, I thought she was part of that whole Maxim magazine. I thought it was when she was on that G4 channel. I'm
looking back here. No, I'm not seeing anything that. Nope. I'm afraid you were wrong. But anyway,
what's on G4?
I've been watching on Netflix The Diplomat with Kerry Russell. So she is a.
Oh, how is that?
It's good. It's it's not. Is it groundbreaking? No, but is it well written? Is it well acted? Yes, I would say that. So she becomes ambassador to London, while also secretly being prepped to take over the vice president role because the vice president's going to get kicked out due to a scandal. And she, as ambassador, has to try to get involved in a diplomatic issue between Russia and Great Britain. So I think it's 8 episodes. I'm 6 episodes in. Definitely worth the watch. And then also, unfortunately, started watching Fatal Attraction. They took the movie, they turned it into a TV series on Paramount Plus, starring Lizzie Kaplan as the Alex Forrest character, made famous by who was in Fatal Attraction? Glenn Close.
Close.
And Joshua Jackson playing the Michael
Oh,
Douglas
he's
role.
good. I
And
know Lizzie Kaplan. Where have I seen her? What have I seen her on?
Amanda Peet as Beth Gallagher. So they change up the storyline. There's still an affair between Dan and Alex.
Sure.
But basically the twist is that Alex Forrest, she ends up dead. Dan Gallagher, Joshua Jackson, ends up in prison for 15 years for her murder, and then gets out determined to prove that he was not the actual killer, while trying to reconnect with his family. Just a horrible TV show.
Really?
It boggles my mind why Joshua Jackson continues to get acting roles. And so you saw the original Fatal Attraction, correct?
Of course.
And in general, for a role like that, you need to believe that there is like a physical chemistry between the actor and actress. Like you felt that there was something between Michael Douglas and Glenn Close.
The sexual tension between Glenn Close and Michael Douglas that they showed was palpable.
Right.
You genuinely saw a married man who was playing it a little loose. And then you saw him going down a path that you were sitting there being like, don't do this, dude. Don't do this. You don't want to do this. Meanwhile, I'm like 12 years old. I don't even know what he was doing at that point. I was just like, don't do this. You're married. You got a wife. Just what are you doing with this woman? Think about it. I mean, how many people looked at a rolling boil pot of water and thought to themselves, is there a bunny in there?
Right. Well, so there's literally there's no chemistry there, even though there's sex, there's no chemistry. And to your point,
that's because Joshua Jackson he's a robot.
Right. And there's even parts of the show where there's like a little white bunny hopping around in the hallway of her apartment building for some reason. Just avoid it if you can. Avoid it if you can.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I think I've watched maybe one or two things on Paramount Plus. I know I watched the show on The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
That was good, and I can't think of anything else I've watched on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, I have Paramount Plus because I get it included with my my Walmart Plus subscription.
Yeehaw!
Going up to Vermont, Brian. Vermont became the second state in the nation last week to allow terminally ill people from other states to travel there to die by suicide while under medical care. The medically assisted suicide law that has been around for decades in the state dropped its residency requirement after Republican Governor Phil Scott signed the bill last week.
I cannot tell you how, it's so refreshing that, there are so many stories in the news about the far right pushing through their agenda in state legislatures. I think earlier today, Montana signed a 12-week abortion ban, that there are still states in this union that are, standing up for progressive rights. If you've got a terminal disease, a doctor has said to you that you are going to die. I believe that as a society, we have the obligation to allow the person to stand up and say, I want to die on my terms. So kudos to Vermont for doing this. Personally, I'm waiting for them to lower the bar on these assisted suicides, just to the point of, I've had enough. I think I'm done.
I've had a good run.
I'm done. Yeah, I had a good run. Yeah, Ron doesn't want to do the podcast with me anymore. So, we did 800 episodes. We had a good, it was nice.
Yeah.
But he just said, he wants his Sunday nights back. So I think that's, that's my exit strategy. So I'm depending on states like this.
And of course, Vermont Right to Life Committee had to oppose it. Saying, quote, we oppose the underlying concept behind assisted suicide. So it doesn't matter if you're suffering. This group feels you should just be forced to live, even if you have no hope whatsoever.
Listen, I cannot sit here and say that I'm right and somebody else is wrong. It's your opinion. And there are people who feel that, life is this incredibly special thing. And from the second that a egg is fertilized by a sperm and becomes a embryo, and at some point a zygote, I don't know what a zygote is.
I think you're onto something here.
Anyway, but they feel that at that point, you've been blessed with life, and that at all costs, we need to cultivate that life through birth, and all the way through that we as humans do not have the right to take life, except if there is a madman walking up and down your subway car with an ice pick in his hand. But all joking aside, but like there are people who just feel that humans do not have the right to take life, and that it is something that God is offered and God will take. Those people are in the minority, and the truth of the matter is that we who do not agree with them need to be just as vocal, if not more vocal, than the people that are speaking up about their opinion.
All right. Alec Murdaugh, convicted.
I always like when I have rambled enough to the point where like you've checked out, because you literally just go like this.
It's not a matter of me.
All right. And then you just move on to the next story.
See, here's the thing though. If I say something, then you say I'm taking away from whatever it is you've just said. If I don't say anything, then you say I'm. But I do try and move the show forward at times.
I love when you disagree. I think that part of the charm of this show is that we agree on things, but that we also disagree on things. That we are pretty much providing the world a template on two people who can love each other in a non-sexual way.
Well, speak for yourself.
Well, as long as Mrs. Ron keeps imposing this embargo on a throuple, but we can agree on things. We can disagree on certain things, but at the end of the day, it is the fact that we care enough about each other as people that is what is going to keep us together. That we don't require this 100% blinding acceptance of our values for us to continue doing this.
Listen, I agree, but if I just agree with you, I'm not going to just sit here and glad hand you all the time. I may just move on to the next story.
But I want you to disagree. Glad handing was just you being like, all right, let's just move on.
But I had nothing to disagree with, so let's move on, because Alex Murdaugh, convicted killer, back in the news again. This regarding his housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield's February 2018 fatal fall in his home, where he was accused of stealing insurance money from her family. His lawyers admitted that he had made up a story about his family dogs causing her fall in order to be able to force his insurers to make a settlement payment.
Wow. I'm surprised he admitted this.
So apparently he secretly pocketed $3.8 million in insurance payments meant for Satterfield's sons after he told them to sue him over their mother's death on his property, claiming he had liability. He then told the children that a settlement was never reached, when in reality, he stole the payments without their knowledge.
Oh, but it was his opioid addiction. He needs to be let go. Whatever. This guy needs to burn in hell. And it is just this, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And he is a perfect example of it. If you have not watched the documentary, what was it, Low Country?
Yes.
Low Country. I think it was on Hulu. I don't think it was the Netflix documentary.
No, I think the Hulu one was the better one.
Hulu was such a good documentary on the Murdaugh family and the corruption that they were pushing into this small area of South Carolina.
Yes. You're on fire tonight with the facts, my friend. Good work.
Listen, man, I tell you, Sunday nights, I am sharp.
So St. Paul, Minnesota, a Minnesota lawmaker was spotted shirtless briefly during a Zoom meeting. I hate news websites where you open it up and it just automatically just pops tons of ads up on your screen. But this involves Senator.
This Daily Mail? Is this Daily Mail?
It is not. It's Fox 9 out of Minnesota. And It involves Senator Calvin Barr, who can be seen shirtless, as you can see in this snapshot of the Zoom photo, with, for some reason, the Schoolhouse Rock "I'm Just a Bill" background behind him as he
No
votes.
way.
The Republican
So he
from
just
East,
forgot his camera was on?
I don't know. So they apparently he notices it, and then the camera switches off to just show his name. The Republican from East Bethel was first elected to the Minnesota legislature, where he served in the House of Representatives, and then elected to the Minnesota Senate in 2022. Local media has reached out for comment, but has received none so far.
Democrat, Republican?
Republican.
Okay, not that it makes a difference.
No.
I do find it odd that that's the background that he chose.
It's
considering that so few of the bills that Republicans are putting forth are treated so democratically. Second of all, just the confidence to lay in bed without a shirt. I mean, it's just I'm so jealous of it. I'm so jealous of it. I don't have it. I don't have the confidence. I just want to go right to
I forgot during what are you watching? I meant to ask you if you watched Roy Wood Jr. from the White House Correspondents' Dinner yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
All right.
I did flag it on YouTube and save later. I did not watch it. I do want to watch it. I've heard nothing, but it was a 23-minute speech where, from what I heard, he literally ripped both sides of the political spectrum. In an attempt to and yet he did it humorously, from what people say.
He did. I would say, probably the one groan he got was he was talking about all of the laws coming out against, drag queens, staying out of schools and things like that. And, he said, drag queens aren't grooming kids. He's like, and it really doesn't matter if they were, because those kids are just going to get shot to death anyway.
Oh, that's a good joke.
And then everybody in the room
that's
groaned.
A good joke.
He's like, don't groan, pass legislation. It's like,
God damn it! What a great what a great tagline.
Yeah.
You know what I did do? I saw Ricky Gervais this past Monday.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
at the Beacon Theater.
Thank you for the invitation.
He is. I was actually invited, so I was not in a place to make invitations. But he was, I guess you could say, he's shop working his newest hour, which he's calling Armageddon.
Okay.
Which he starts off by talking about, how it's talking about the inevitable end of humanity. But he spends very little time talking about the end of humanity. But he just, what I liked about it is that it's still not a finished product. So there were several jokes and bits in there where afterwards you'd be like, oh, don't worry about it. That's not going in the Netflix special. Like Netflix is not going to want any bit of that joke. So you guys are getting it, but later shows will not. Just very funny. Just very funny.
I do like it.
Yeah, just he's very clever.
And then one final story, kind of a sad, bizarre story to finish off with. Jesse McFadden, he was a sex offender in Oklahoma. He was found dead this week, along with 6 others, in a rural Oklahoma home. And now officials are stating that he shot the victims in the head before turning the gun on himself. It included 2 missing teenage girls and a family that he was living with. He also apparently, the night prior to this shooting, sent text to the victim in his child sex abuse trial, warning her that, quote, "This is all on you." He failed to show up for court on Monday to stand trial on charges of soliciting sexual conduct with a minor and possession of child pornography. And he continued to text, "I did exactly what I promised I would do when I got out. I got a marketing job making great money and was being advanced, been there 2 years and made a great life like I promised I would do with you. Now it's all gone. I told you I wouldn't go back. This is all on you for continuing this."
Story's just completely fucked. You've got somebody who is clearly not in a good headspace. The exact kind of person that should not have access to a handgun, and he, lo and behold, shot 6 people?
6, yes, and then himself.
Yeah, you know what? Just a terrible story.
And then finally, from Barstool Sports, David Portnoy announced Wednesday that host Ben Minst was fired from the company after saying a racial slur while reading rap lyrics on a live stream last week. Apparently, Barstool's parent company, Penn Entertainment, demanded the firing, even though Dave Portnoy was against it. But that is what happens when you sell your company to a larger company, especially one that is in the gambling business and is worried about state regulators. They will make you do things like that. And the pushback, again, Dave Portnoy, I think, is probably one of the more polarizing figures in media these days. Not a huge fan.
I just think that listen. I am. I have to say that I am impressed that you've got you've got some kid from Massachusetts who really had no direction in life. Started doing a little newsletter on sports, and has basically built it into an empire. It's worth it's worth nine figures. And the audience is, they have absolutely pandered towards the white males, towards conservative white males, and it has paid off for them. But at the same time, it is, you know what? I don't even know what what this guy on Barstool Sports even did or said. I know. Well, I know it was a racial, but was it assault?
He was just reading lyrics from a rap song. And as people have done in the past, they've thought they can say the N-word because they were reading lyrics of a rap song. And no, you still can't do that
shit. Can't do that anymore.
But the pushback that Portnoy has been getting online has been just epic. People calling him a sellout, people cursing him, the whole nine yards. So it's just very interesting that a guy who was one of these people that was against cancel culture now is getting canceled himself by a lot of his fans.
Well, that's the whole irony of the whole cancel culture, nonsense, which is the fact that, I think it really started with the left trying to cancel people who acted inappropriately, and the right, while clinging to this argument of how terrible the cancel culture is, have decided to embrace, let's cancel anything we don't like.
Right.
The number of stories I'm seeing in the New York Post, the official news source of Brian, about how Bud Light's not selling anymore because the beer drinkers on the right just have now rejected it over the Dylan Mulvaney.
Yes. Wow, you are on point with the facts tonight. I'm on today. Hold on. Come on. No corrections will be needed for this episode.
Thank you. But we both sides have fully embraced cancel culture.
Yes, without a doubt. Writers Guild of America on strike as we speak, and if it is not resolved, we will lose, Brian, the last two episodes of the season of Saturday Night Live, which was supposed to on May 18th have Secession star Kieran Culkin with musical guest Labyrinth, and then finishing out the season with White Lotus star Jennifer Coolidge and the Foo Fighters. Actually, been a pretty good SNL.
I thought that Pete Davidson was going to be the host of one of those episodes.
I don't know.
Because I read today that SNL canceled the rest of their shows.
They have at this point because the odds of this getting resolved in time, definitely to do the May 13th episode, probably not going to happen. They anticipate this strike to go on for a month or two. We'll see how it plays out. Thankfully, the writers for the Ron and Brian podcast belong to a different union, so they can still continue making the magic for us.
They are part of the Cocaine Guild of America, the CGA. And you know what? They cannot go on strike because they need to feed their habit.
Very true. Well, another fantastic episode here. Episode
always
256 in the books. A special programming.
Look at that.
I know it was light out when we started.
10 after 9, and it's just getting dark.
Special programming announcement for next week. Next Sunday, obviously, is Mother's Day. And we here at the Ron and Brian podcast, we lift women up. We support women. And because of that, we're not going to go head to head with moms on Mom's Day. So next week, we will be doing our show on Monday, May 15th at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Moms, it's your day. Sunday is your day. So we'll have the podcast at 8 o'clock on Monday and After Dark at 9:30 that Monday night. Brian, anything else before we wrap up this Sunday night edition of the
Just want to say
podcast?
that, I truly appreciate the ability to spend an hour and 10 this week with you. Truly appreciate everybody who has taken time out of their lives to watch the show, listen to the show. If you are on YouTube right now, click subscribe, click like, give us a comment.
The whole nine.
We're getting closer to being able to monetize on YouTube. We're not there yet, but we would like to. The more people that subscribe to the show, YouTube's going to start paying us a little bit more than they already are.
That's right. We need to monetize this because we put the money right back into the show. We make it that much
just
better.
Rolls right into it. We're not making money off of this. And tell your friends. I think if everybody this week that is currently listening were to figure out somebody that is in their network that they can sit there and say, "Hey, there's a podcast I really like. I think you would like. I think you would also like it." This show continues to grow, and we go from the Ron and Brian Nation to the Ron and Brian universe.
I like it. I like where your head's at. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We will catch you again next week. Don't forget, Monday night. We'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com.